Good morning or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Amanda Scott. I'm a Senior Director here at Capture Higher Ed. You have the pleasure today of attending the Transfer Mania Tips to Meet Your Transferred Student Goals. And we have a couple of hosts here for you today. Jamie Gleason, he is a Senior Enrollment Advisor at Capture Higher Ed. And a special guest who I'll introduce you to here shortly, Heather Yush. She is an Assistant Director of College and Transfer Relations at Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society. Jamie and Heather are joining us to give strategic advice for transfer enrollment, what they have seen well work in their tenure in higher education.
All right, thanks, Amanda. It's good to be with all of you today. And most likely the reason that you're attending today is you fall into perhaps one of a couple different groups. You are either in the process of meeting your transfer goals right now and maybe coming up short, or maybe you're thinking about the future and you're trying to solidify some programming and some strategies or tactics that you can employ in the future. So hopefully what we offer today will scratch both of those itches, proverbial itches. But before we go too much further, let me introduce myself. My name is Jamie Gleason, like Amanda said. I've been with Capture for coming up on 4 years. I've been in higher education for just under 13 years in a number of different roles, including being the Director of Admissions at 2 different institutions in the Philadelphia area, which is where I call home. And I will allow myself here to be quiet so then Heather can introduce herself.
Thank you so much, Jamie, and everyone at Capture for having me as your special guest and co-host today. My name is Heather Yush. I'm the Associate Director of College and Transfer Relations at Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society. And I guess a good fun fact, or maybe more interesting, I should say, is I've had a really non-linear kind of path into higher ed, which I hope to leverage here today in giving you all some really usable, sustainable strategies for growing your transfer enrollment. My background is really in recruiting. If you look at all 12 years, I have been in higher ed, but I've worn many, many hats, starting out at community colleges as an instructor and a coach, and going into athletics for a while in coaching, and then moving into the transfer admissions realm at a major public research university. So that brought me here. So I've been here for 3 years now at Phi Theta Kappa, which is obviously a nonprofit. So I hope that I can relate to everyone no matter what sector you're coming from today.
Great, thanks, Heather. You know, while we're right there, why don't you tell us a little bit more about Phi Theta Kappa, just in a big picture? I know we're going to talk a little bit more about it later on, but why don't you go into the mission right here?
Sure, absolutely. So Phi Theta Kappa is an honor society. I know that some of you may already be very well aware of Phi Theta Kappa, and maybe you're already one of our partners in excellence and you're joining us to sharpen your tool set here today, which is wonderful. But in case you're not very familiar, just a very general overview of what we are, who we are, and what we do. Phi Theta Kappa, don't be fooled by the Greek letters. We are an academic honor society. We are not a fraternity or a sorority. And in fact, we're a nonprofit organization that has over 3.5 million members since the inception of the organization back in 1918, over 100 years ago. So we have a very long success rate and history, and really we've been celebrating community college students for well over 100 years, or just over 100 years now. So our mission has really remained true, and I think we're one of the few out there that really is dedicated and fully focused on the success of transfer students, particularly from the community college sector. So I think that's a good kind of broad strokes picture, and I know we'll get a question later, so I'll go ahead and address this. Generally speaking, for a student to accept membership in Phi Theta Kappa, generally speaking, they have to have a 3.5 GPA on their first 12 credits at the 2-year college. So these students are incredibly bright and talented out of the gates, and what we do is basically lift them up through programming, service learning opportunities, leadership development, exclusive scholarships. So we really try to provide all the wraparound support and tools that they need to continue to thrive on that trajectory of success.
Right, that just is a great insight, I think, for those especially who are unfamiliar with PTK. And just for those who don't know anything about Capture, hopefully you do a little bit, but Capture is maybe on the other end of the continuum when it comes to age. We're a pretty young company, but what we are exclusive in is the world of higher ed. We are a company that really works on finding those right fit students and getting the right students to the right institution. As you'll see later on in the presentation, we use a lot of technology and we're very technology oriented. We are a tech enabled services company. We offer fully managed products, and we're going to talk about some of those today. But at the heart of the matter, when it comes down to what we're really trying to accomplish today, is that we want to show you the opportunity that exists potentially in this market of transfer students, and maybe talk about some of the ways that marketplace has changed in the recent past and maybe in the not so recent past. And I think that maybe through this presentation, you'll see how Phi Theta Kappa and Capture have some very keen interests that overlap each other quite a bit. I want to start today just by kind of defining what we're talking about. There's a number of different types of transfers. Probably all of you are shaking your head when you hear that statement, and we just wanted to really talk through like the different types that exist, the different primary types, and then really make reference to what we're going to be addressing today, or what types we're most going after, so to speak. So vertical transfers are the ones who Heather referred to, really, where you're going from a 2-year institution into a 4-year institution experience. Reverse transfers are the opposite of that, and there's some colloquial terms that basically refer to these kind of students as summer swimmers. They kind of jump back down from their 4-year experience into a 2-year, maybe in order to graduate sooner or to get some additional credits. And then there's lateral transfers, which we're all probably very familiar with. I know when I was a student in college, I was a lateral transfer. I went from one 4-year institution. I considered going to a different 4-year institution. I ended up not going through with that, but it was on my mind, and I actually started paying my tuition that way. So for today's purposes, we're really going to hit a lot on vertical transfers, but there will be some crossover here that kind of are employable practices for pretty much any of these 3 categories. Heather, if you don't mind, you are knee deep, neck deep in the world of transfer. So why don't you just tell us what's going on in the transfer marketplace recently?
Sure, I would love to, and that is definitely the case. That this is what I kind of live and breathe daily at Phi Theta Kappa, and it's really important for me to be able to offer any sort of advice or support to the 4-year colleges in particular. For me to have a firm understanding of this and all of the kind of factors at play. So I've put a few stats here, included a few stats on the slide that most of you, if you work in transfer or serve transfer students, you're probably already familiar with. But I'll try to add some commentary here to provide a little bit more of a context for what we're going to be discussing today. In terms of sustainable solutions, if you're trying to achieve, no matter what it is on your campus, really, if it's related to tuition revenue goals or related to filling your upper level courses and balancing your class by enrolling more transfer students. Also, we have schools that have a really strong access mission. So if you're trying to support the access mission at your institution, it's going to be critical to enroll more diverse students and have a more diverse class. So transfer students are going to be a viable pipeline for you as well. So I just encourage everyone to really take another look at your strategic plan for your university or your department and find those areas where you can directly plug in and get the transfer students more of a voice and more support and resources to help them thrive. And just kind of backing up with the shifting demographics that's listed here. Obviously there are a lot of things we can't control, like the economy. So when the economy is in decline, we know what happens, and students will go to school, and they tend to go to a more affordable school, which would be a community college. So this really speaks to the fact that you can't control the economy. So the best you can really do at a 4-year college is be set up to really have a strong intake for transfer students, because they are going to enroll at the community colleges or the more affordable choices, and then they will want to continue their bachelor's degree to sharpen their tools to go to work. So that's just one, way or why this should be on everyone's mind and not just, the transfer person's mind or the transfer recruiter's mind. Also, there's declining populations of high school students, which we've known for a while, and there's some kind of apocalyptic studies out there about what's going to happen in the years ahead. But not trying to scare anyone, but obviously we want to make sure that the four-year institutions are set up for success no matter what happens. And birth rates are certainly something we can't control. So, having and really understanding what's going on out there in terms of the steep declines that are going to hit the Midwest and the Northeast in particular. Again, it's really important and vital for these institutions to take a strong look at what they're doing with their transfer enrollment. Also, just talking more about strategic plan objectives and trying to insert yourself into that plan. When I say that, I don't really mean in like a disingenuous way. I'm talking more about how can you add value to your college and contribute to your strategic plan. And you're just going to find yourself getting somewhere much quicker if you have the support of some of those objectives and if you're aiming to help out with some of those initiatives. So for example, I would think just looking at strategic plans kind of across the board, most of the time you'll see something in there about looking for more high quality students, not just high quantity of students. And there's some really interesting studies that have been put out there by Jack Kent Cooke Foundation and some others. And we certainly have some studies out there from Phi Theta Kappa's end with our statistics and metrics on our students. If you take a close look at these studies, you'll find that the transfer students are academically very successful, and even compared to native students who started as freshmen, they're outperforming some of their peers. Even at highly selective institutions, they're doing so. So if you have any naysayers or people that may just not be as well informed in the transfer realm, which is totally understandable, I just would ask you to point to the data and make sure that you're sharing the story of transfer on your campus so that people can really understand how much value these students do add. It's really increasingly competitive. So the bottom line is, if you are interested in a diverse class or tuition revenue or filling your classes, whatever that reason might be, that you really need to look toward this market for an opportunity for growth. And if you read over these statistics, you'll see the opportunity for growth. It should stick out at you. No matter what population you're serving, I think you can read these statistics and make sense of the fact that basically we're saying we know students that are coming into community college desire, they have an aspiration or an interest in transferring, but what's actually happening is that only about 33% are transferring within 6 years. Of course, Phi Theta Kappa, that's about 75% for our particular cohort of students due to all of the things I alluded to earlier with our support services. But generally speaking, for all transfers out there, only about 14% of the entire cohort of those that are coming in as community college students are actually earning their degree. So we can capitalize on that. We can all find opportunity there to help lift these students up and help them achieve what they are setting out to do. And I think really that's the bottom line. And in terms of communicating with your leadership team and your administrators on why you need more resources, human resources, financial, just keep in mind that they're a high yield population of students. If you can get them to apply and you admit them, about 2/3 of the time they're going to enroll, compared to about 28% of the time for a freshman. So the return on investment is there. So I hope that helps really paint the picture of what we're dealing with in terms of the current kind of state of affairs with transfer.
Sure, no, that's super helpful. The two statistics as we were prepping for this that really stuck out to me were really these rates of students that will actually transfer at least one time, and then the more than once, and then the different timing aspects that kind of are to be taken into consideration when you think about when students will actually make that transfer move, which doesn't actually, probably on the enrollment manager side of things, doesn't necessarily make anything easier, because it really just shows that there's this a very large continuum of when students might transfer. Yet at the same time, the whole goal of our presentation today and what we're talking about is how are we there when they decide to make that move? Because ultimately, like you said, Heather, they will, most indicate an interest and many will transfer. So what we want to be able to do is create systems and put systems in place that allow us to be receptive when they are ready to make that move. So that kind of segues into, what it actually, there's two categories we want to cover today. It's like, how do we build a short-term pipeline? And then how do we build a long-term, almost like a sustainable system so that, so that we're ready, so that, quote unquote, we're ready. So when we were thinking about like the difference between short-term and long-term, the way I was defining it in my mind as a former director of admissions was really, how can I get something, a campaign or an effort stood up in the next, 1 month to 5 months. So in our case here, it's like, how do I get something going before the beginning of the cycle? The 2020 cycle comes along, the fall 20 cycle comes along. And are there things that we can do in the short term? So we're going to start by doing some short-term initiatives and some short-term work. And my hope is that maybe these are some things that you're already doing. But certainly if not, then I would say there are certainly things to consider very, very seriously. So the first one on the list is geo-IP targeting. Essentially, what we know about all students, not just transfer students, but all students are, this is a generation of students that's very used to being marketed to. And marketing needs to be something that's on our minds, maybe more prolifically than ever. And geo-IP targeting, which is essentially going after the specific location where transfer students are located, is one of those clear ways of doing that. So as the description says here, using digital banners, let's invite students to kind of learn more or take the next step. So what's that look like for you to put some banners together, much like the examples that you see on the presentation of, are there ways for you to, build banners in order to display them on local community college campuses where there are students? And so I know that we have worked with a lot of partners to do initiatives like this, and there is lots of benefit, right? One thing is you get a lot of bang for your buck in terms of exposure and impressions, and the click-throughs are very easy to kind of measure and kind of see the results, to a certain degree. The other thing is these are relatively quick to design and stand up. It doesn't take a lot of work to kind of put together a banner set, to turn them on and off easily, and to use them in some cases on multiple, in multiple areas, multiple geo areas, and the results are, very kind of easy to see. And with the CBE, which is a tool that Capture stands behind and has invented, so to speak, then the results are even easier to see. And I'll talk about that here in just a couple of minutes. So this is, in my mind, as it comes to like getting your brand out there, and this especially, as we talk forward, if you have articulation agreements or, certain agreements or places where you just know your transfer students are coming from, then this makes sense just to get out in front of those students and remind them that you're there. So that is geo-IP targeting, a quick stand-up that's, I would say, tactic number one as we look to increasing or augmenting the exposure that we have on community college campuses. The second effort that I think to is equally as easy to stand up, very similar to the geo-IP targeting, but this is happening on social platforms, social media platforms, and this is paid social prospecting is what we call it inside Capture. If you're a Facebook user and you've ever used the ad manager, then you can actually build these campaigns on your own. They're actually pretty simple to set up, but it's essentially offers the option of kind of building a profile of, hey, this is what my typical transfer student looks like. You can pick a location, a geographic location, and you can kind of draw a circle around that or a radius, do a proximity map, and basically, again, build banner sets that are going to display on social media platforms that encourage students to kind of take an action. Now, the great part about this is that, for both of the two previous items that I have talked about, geo-IP and paid social, this is actually lead generation tools. So these are ways to like get new students who potentially don't know about you and are not in your inquiry pool, get them to show up in your space, get them to, raise their hands, proverbially raise their hand. And there's just a really very easy measurable ROI of students who are coming to the platform and understanding, who you are more, what you have to offer. And in cases that you see here, you can show about outcomes, you can show about statistics for your graduates, and really make a pretty big impact in a very short amount of time. So I would say I work with a not-for-profit, and I have set up some of my own paid social campaigns for this not-for-profit that I'm on the board for. And literally, in the evening, if I'm just sitting around doing nothing and I have that on my list, it takes 30 minutes to set one up, and if you can set the budget, you can put brackets around it so you don't overspend, and it's just really, really very simple. Great way to get leads, great way to build your presence if you're regionally looking for additional inquiries. Heather, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the next one is search. We want to search for transfers. So this is a opportunity for Heather to tell a little bit about PTK Connect.
Yeah, thank you, Jamie. And I was taking a quick peek at the attendees, and I see some of you are on the phone and listening in without a computer potentially in front of you. So I'll try to color commentary here, but there is a screenshot, and you'll see it in the slide deck later, of PTK Connect. Kind of a segment of our dashboard is showing on the screen currently. And just some of you already are using PTK Connect, and potentially that's why you're here, to find out how to leverage and maximize that a little better. But for those of you who are not familiar with this, as Jamie alluded to, we are basically helping to provide transfer student prospects to your inquiry pool. And this is how we're doing it. So I'm really excited to have this opportunity to introduce this platform. It started just this fall after a huge rebranding effort. If you've ever heard of College Fish, that was our former name. And for about 10 years, we were in existence as College Fish. But now the future is bright with PTK Connect, because we've really, this is created and powered by Phi Theta Kappa, and we've really revolutionized our tool. And some of the things that we've done here, it's still, this at the heart of it, the point of this is to provide lead generation and be a resource for lead generation on your campus for transfer student prospects in particular. And in a given year, there's about 200,000 high-achieving transfer-bound students that will be visible and searchable in our database. And we add students every day, because students are accepting membership pretty much 365 days of the year in Phi Theta Kappa. So those students become visible and searchable to you if they indicate to us that they are interested in transfer opportunities. So the nice thing is, and I know that this screenshot is a little difficult to see here because it's just a snippet of the dashboard, but basically we're showing you, we have a ton of different parameters that you can search on. And really the point here is to target the students that you're looking for. So whether that be geographic location, certain maybe demographic qualities or characteristics, or GPA, expected graduation date, academic major, Pell eligibility, veteran student status, age, I'm just kind of rambling on here, but all of those are at your disposal. So no matter what you're looking for, who you're looking for, you're going to be able to find students that meet those criteria. The nice thing about us, again, is we're exclusive to transfer. We are the transfer people here in this space, in terms of trying to connect students with four-year colleges that have opportunities. And we exclusively are looking at transfer students. So we really pre-qualified these students in a way. The filter there, if you click on PTK members only, you're only going to find students who have a very high GPA. Generally speaking, that's a 3.5, and in most schools, they're going to be scholarship eligible for you. So we kind of make it easy on you in that respect as well, to plug into your CRM. But we've also got a lot of other opportunities I'll discuss later, because we're about so many more things than just purchasing leads, and the other things are really the super exciting things, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to telling you more about those later. Jamie, do you want to explain a little bit about College Board and their options?
Sure.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah. That's so. As I put in the title of this, one of the harder things I think in the transfer market is just the finding leads, finding potential lead sources, and understanding where those lead sources are, quality and effective and things like that. So in my job here at Capture as a brainstormer, one of the things that I've aspired to is the I would say the people inside our company call me kind of the search guru. And if I'm presented with a challenge of just turning up leads for a particular institution, one of the ways that you can actually do that using College Board, and this is purely at the discretion of the partner that I might present this idea to. It's not something that we tell anyone to do. It's just an option that exists. But even this week, as I went into the College Board search, there is the opportunity to actually look at previous years' graduation classes, as in the 2018s, and then select those who have 2-year community college interest and potentially put those into the pipeline. Now, this is just an option for looking for leads. There are definitely some considerations that need to be given if this is something that an institution wants to do. But it does exist if there is some interest in kind of going back in time, so to speak, and grabbing leads that meet those filtering criteria that you use, maybe similarly to your incoming freshmen or other search groups that you might be looking for. I'll turn it back over to you, Heather, to talk a little bit more about about the dashboard.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is really the inverse of what we saw a minute ago. So once you subscribe to PTK Connect as a 4-year college or university, you'll have all kinds of little widgets here to play with, and just know that our students are really on this platform for a few different purposes. As you see at the bottom on the left columns, they are finding scholarships, they are finding colleges, and finding career pathways. And so these are the points where you're going to be able to add value on the platform to really attract their interest and get their attention. So I wanted to highlight on this dashboard for this particular institution, they have 51 students who have viewed their campus profile, and they have 13 students who have added that institution to their favorites list. So this is part of the upgrades. If you were a College Fish user in the past, or maybe did a demo with us, we invite you and encourage you to come back and look at PTK Connect, because it is much different, very much more modernized with more of a social media feel. We know that students like to go in and click on that heart on social media, and so this is what they're doing on our platform as well. Really just trying to make things more efficient for both the user and the recruiter. So these are really hot leads too. So that's the other part of this, that now you have behavioral metrics or breadcrumbs. And I know marketing folks in particular love this type of behavioral metric, because it's really showing you who is ready to take the next step. So they're already kind of identifying themselves as a person who is interested in your school, and that way you can do some, hopefully, really prioritize the recruitment and marketing to those students, stratify your recruitment pool a little bit, and it really gives you the better opportunity for high return on investment. So that's our dashboard, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to share that, because I think it will definitely help students get into the right hands quicker, so to speak, with these 4-year institutions that are ready for transfer students.
Sure, absolutely. No, thanks for showing it to us. So I referred earlier, just to recap so far, we've talked about GeoIP targeting, paid social prospecting. We've talked about transfer student search, and also the inversion of that of students who are potentially searching for you through the PTK dashboard. The other thing I wanted to highlight as kind of a short, maybe more of a quick stand-up is the Capture behavioral engagement platform. I'm going to quickly run through this. It's not going to be a sales pitch, I promise. But essentially, CBE is a little piece of code that we put all over our partners' websites so that we can track the behavior of web users. So you might be asking yourself, so what's the impact on that for transfer enrollment, and how do we potentially capitalize on that in order to get students to kind of raise their hand or show an increased or an augmented interest in our institution? Well, as you can imagine, if generating leads is one of the hardest parts of the transfer pipeline, then knowing who's on your website might make that a slightly easier process. And certainly knowing students who are particularly visiting your transfer URLs or transfer domains or microsites that are oriented toward transfer enrollment, like that makes a big difference. So here's a couple of ways that we utilize that technology for capturing transfer students. Capture was no pun intended there. That was just my language. So this is from one of our partner sites, the University of Kansas. You may have heard of that. They come up sometimes in the March Madness tournament, which is about to begin. But here is a transfer piece that they have going with us that essentially invites an anonymous user to their transfer tagged pages, invites them to fill out this microform so that we can start building a profile and then start put those students into the pipeline for transfer enrollment, depending on when their anticipated entry term is in that drop down. Essentially, what this allows us to do is harvest what potentially might be stealth leads, stealth users, and as we all know, transfers, in my experience anyway, transfers have a fairly short attention span when it comes to the enrollment process. They have a few questions that they want to have answered, and I usually boil it down to two questions. How long is it going to take me to finish, and what's it going to cost? And really the what's it going to cost is actually going to be really kind of go back to how much is it, or how long is it going to take me is going to go back to what's it going to cost. But essentially what this allows us to do is, whether it's the first visit or the second visit to the page, this anonymous user can get this microform presented to them. If they choose to fill it out, which they don't have to, the X at the top is always an option, but if they choose to fill it out, then it potentially adds one more lead to the pipeline for the University of Kansas. What we can do beyond that is really turn on the superpowers of marketing automation that CBE has to offer. And in this case, there's lots of different options that we could do, but here are some of the examples for some of the partners that we've worked with. And what it allows us to do is get right in front of the student. And these obviously are for students who haven't, taken a particular step, or they have started but haven't finished. But essentially, it allows us to put a message in front of them that is exactly where it needs to be for the student where they currently are. So if they're an inquiry, then it's going to push them to apply. If they're an anonymous user, then it's going to, talk about like maybe one of the benefits of the school and what are the promises that they make to their transfer population. And we can also trigger messages that go out, like after a student fills out a form like this one is as presented in this slide, then we can actually trigger an outgoing message like the one you see on the far right that basically says, hey, you've given us a little bit of information, we know a little bit about who you are, take the next step, or move forward in the process. So essentially what it is that it kind of boils down to this. The CBE code enables the progressive identification form to be filled out. It enables that marketing automation to start and to begin working. And then capture affinity prospecting is a tool, it's a kind of a language that we use inside Capture. But if you think about a user to your website, it's not too infrequent that we can find people who spend lots of time on your website, but they don't take the action of like filling out your request for information form or coming to an open house. What Capture's team of staff has done is to basically create an algorithm that says, if a student gets to a certain point, if they keep taking actions behaviorally on the website, then we automatically put them into a bucket and say, hey, that student is, they've reached what we consider a capture affinity prospect, which means they are actually acting like an inquiry. In some cases, they're acting like an applicant, but they haven't done the steps. What we encourage our partners to do is actually use that information, use that behavioral data in order to drive that student, to the next stage in the process. Now, we don't make that change for them. We don't push anyone to inquiry who hasn't done that. That's completely up at the discretion of the partner that we work with. But essentially, we use these behavioral points right here that you can see: capture engagement capture engagement score, and capture affinity index, to say, hey, how frequently is that student coming back to the website? What are they doing? And what are our recommendations based on the behavior that they're taking on the site? So how many pages have they visited? How much time have they spent on those pages? What are our recommendations based on the behavioral data that we're seeing from that student to push that student forward? Maybe that pushed into the capture affinity prospect land. Maybe that opens up a phone call that wouldn't be available for a student who's kind of a not an inquiry, or maybe it opens up a piece of direct mail. Maybe it opens up a text. There's lots of different ways that we can kind of use that behavioral information in order to drive the relationship or drive that student to kind of move to the next step. that probably opened up a lot more questions than answers, but essentially CBE, what I ultimately want you to understand is that capture behavioral engagement unlocks this whole new dimension of behavioral data and behavioral patterns that really give us some insight into what students are doing. So at this point, I actually want to pivot a little bit more to the long term. Like, how do we make this pipeline creation process a little bit more long term and sustainable? How do we encourage other partners around the university to get involved in this process? And what are some of the other things that we should be doing kind of on a routine basis in order to get students or keep students in our transfer pipeline? So one of the things that I, kind of going back to the information that we referred to earlier about graduation and, transfer rates and when transferring happens, one of the things that I highly encourage everyone to do, so if the handwritten note there is things to do for you this fall, hopefully a day off number 4 will be on your list, but I know for many enrollment managers that's not the case. But one of the things that I highly recommend for all the partners that I work with is the use of the National Student Clearinghouse Student Tracker. If you're not familiar with this tool, essentially what this allows you to do is take any student who has applied to your institution in the past, send in their information to the National Student Clearinghouse, and find out where they landed. So you might be asking yourself, well, what do I do with that information? Well, that's really up to you what you do with it. But with the changes in some of the FAFSA prioritization information that we now have or don't have, with some other things that have changed in the marketplace, this student tracker can actually really lend some significant insight as to who your competitors are. But not only that, it will allow you to understand which of the students who applied here and maybe were thinking about my institution ended up going to a community college. And then hopefully what that triggers in your mind is a sustainable process for basically piping those students back into your pipeline as deferred students or as students who potentially could be reached out to at a later point to say, learn more about the transfer process or items like that. But essentially, this list gives you insight as to what those students are doing and where they're going. It helps you understand your competitor set, but it also helps you to build the sustainable paradigm where you can feed students back into your pipeline for exposure, for branding. Even if it's just sending out a banner campaign and letting them know that you're still there and that you haven't moved your physical address. Along with that, there's obviously some internal partners that you really need to have great relationships with. So leaning back on my experience as a director of admissions, the Office of Institutional Research is a priceless tool, and it's certainly time well spent when it comes to establishing rapport in order to understand who your students are and what are some of the attributes that they are bringing with them. Heather referred to a lot how there are certain students who are transferring from 2 years or 4 year schools, and understanding what that composition is like. And I think that we'll talk about that a little bit more, but really just understanding what the profile of your transfer student body looks like. And then the Office of the Registrar is another one for me that was very critical in just really understanding how does the transfer process work? How does the transcript evaluation process work? Whose responsibility is it to perfect that process, make it faster and more seamless? Student services and understanding how a transfer community can have significant impact when it comes to building or demonstrating or displaying that community of transfer students, and then marketing communication in order to show that off and put it on display for potential transfers to see, hey, this is what community looks like, this is what the process looks like, and helping everyone to be, to understand what it means to become a transfer to your institution. Heather, what are some other areas that you have seen as critical when it comes to internal partnerships?
I think everything on the slide is very important, and trying not to list every person that works on a college campus, I would say also adding their financial aid and scholarships office, just to make sure the student is having kind of a one-stop shop experience in the transfer process, and is not getting passed around like a pinball, from one to the other, trying to figure out all the moving pieces of transfer. So really try to befriend someone in your financial aid and scholarships office to take these students under their wing. Also with IR, I mean, if I were going to have a new best friend on a college campus, I would definitely march straight over to the IR office and find out who is in charge of the data on my campus. Because, as Jamie said, it's going to be very important to understand the composition of the class, but also, data really resonates with leadership teams and administrators and the people who have the purse strings, and trying to get somebody to approve any sort of proposal for funding. You're really going to have firm data and show return on investment and what that's going to look like. Another internal partner that I think is often forgotten is your current transfer students. You have some really amazing success stories on your campus that are just waiting to be heard. And if you can seek these people out, maybe recruit the help of marketing and communications to get these students an interview, or put them, make them your transfer poster child for your institution. You would be amazed. They're like gold. Having a successful recruiter or successful transfer student on your campus is just the best thing, the MVP for your recruiting team. So yeah, just don't operate in a silo. Everybody tries to take this on. If you're a one-person transfer team, it doesn't mean that you are in a silo and nobody else cares or needs to know what you're doing. It actually means that you're going to only be successful in expanding your reach by finding on-campus allies and keeping them involved. Have them go to your recruiting visits with you if they're from a particular academic department that's really eager to grow their enrollment. There's some super smart strategies that you can employ on things that you're already doing. Just don't try to take it on yourself, and that way, if you do try to take it on yourself, you're going to really do a disservice to the students, because you're not going to help institutionalize transfer at the university, which ultimately will hurt your ability to create any sort of long-term pipeline. I hope that's cool.
No, those are totally words to live by. I think you're right on the money, Heather, because being a transfer maverick, it's the law of influence, right? There's only so much that you can reach out if you're on your own. So having allies is critical. So also external partnerships. This is another area, Heather, that kind of falls right into your wheelhouse. So go ahead and tell us about your experience in this area.
Sure. I have on the very top of the slide about formalizing a diversified recruitment strategy, and that's just a few words, but really that is so critical. Every word in that sentence is critical, because so many of us are dealing with a population of students who are probably a minority population in terms of there's fewer of them than there are first-time freshmen, and they're usually underserved. They're underserved students, they're underserved population on your campus, so they have a lot of challenges. And I think sometimes people are just intimidated by that, because there are so many pathways to your institution for transfer students, through vertical and swirling and reverse and all these things we talked about. But I would just encourage you not to be intimidated by it, and rather to see it as an opportunity. And for just as diverse as there are pathways to your institution, your strategy should be equally diverse in terms of access points. So this is why you have a laundry list of things to do here under this slide, and this is probably 5 or 6 things out of about 30 that I could think of right now that would help with external partnerships. But these are really kind of the low-hanging fruit. So developing transfer scholarships, just let me give some color commentary here to this slide, because you need to really understand your partner, because transfer is a partnership. So if you're having a presence on the 2-year campus, on the community college campus, really showing the staff and faculty there that you appreciate and respect what they're doing, and that you're not there to just show up and steal their students for a couple hours every semester. You're trying to build a partnership, and you're trying to find a way for these students to have something to do after they graduate from the 2-year college. And that's where articulation agreements become important. Bridge programs where they can enroll kind of simultaneously on the campuses, or maybe have a natural progression without reapplying to the 4-year school. building scholarships has to be part of that, because that is the biggest sign that you are interested in these students as potential graduates of the community college, and you want to take them in. So really building scholarships thoughtfully to incentivize their completion at the community college. All of these are kind of, goodwill building skills for you as a recruiter or a transfer counselor, to show those two-year colleges that you're really interested in long-term partnership development. Anything that involves, completion at the two-year college kind of being baked in really is going to resonate with those two-year campuses and make them very happy. Another tip that I would have for you, you're on the community college campus quite a bit if you're a recruiter, but you're only there a few times. You kind of set up shop and disappear, and just really be present when you're there. Visiting with the staff and faculty go a long way. I'm not saying spend the whole day on campus, but find your key contacts and let them know how much you appreciate the opportunity. Give them your updated materials. Invite them to your campus. Have you ever kind of turned the tables where they get to come to your campus and have a great experience, maybe like a VIP experience? All of that is so important to just show them, that you really have good intentions and that you're trying to just look out for the same mutual interest of student success. Just be creative and work through your list of campus allies, and then think about, off campus, who can those be, and don't discredit or forget to value things like indirect recruitment. So I would put in that category things like advertising or sponsorships of certain events, and making sure that the other constituents on campus that are a little bit external to you, like your call center, wherever the phone calls come through, that they know about transfer and understand your verbiage and your rhetoric. Website, make sure that you audit your own website and make sure that if you hit Control F on the admissions page and type in the word transfer, you're getting a lot of hits, and it's very helpful, efficient information. As Jamie alluded to, they're not going to spend a lot of time on your enrollment process. So if they hit Control F and write transfer in there and they don't see the word transfer on your website, that's probably going to be pretty discouraging for the transfer student. Really a leave no stone unturned mentality is kind of what it comes down to. And just put your partners in high regard and think of them first, because otherwise you're not going to know what they need or want or expect.
Yeah, that's very good advice, Heather. I think when as Heather and I were working on this presentation for today, one of the things that we kept going back to is leave no stone unturned. And I think that what we're hoping to accomplish, and especially on the last two slides where there's lots of bullet points, is that there are a lot of stones to potentially turn over. And what I think we need to recognize is that it won't all happen in one day. It won't all happen in one cycle. But the mentality of creating a sustainable system happens, a little bit at a time, but with consistent effort and with a consistent focus and a good plan. So thanks for that info on the partnerships, Heather. And that really kind of wraps up the long term, I would say wraps up in a 45-minute segment, the two types, long term, short term. I wanted to give Heather a little bit of opportunity just to talk a little more about PTK and some of the changes that are being made there, and then we're going to open up the floor to the questions that might be out there after we wrap up.
Yes, so very quickly here, PTK Connect is just one of the many kind of tools that we provide for four-year colleges that are looking to better recruit community college transfer students. All of the other ways, and I've put some kind of logos here, images on the screen for you, and also in the center just a little bit about our membership, just some kind of fast facts about our membership. So generally, if you're looking at this image and these data points and you're thinking, okay, these are the types of students that we really need to be reaching out to and enrolling at our college or university. If this resonates with you, the surrounding kind of logos show you some of the different support resources that we offer. Some of these things are completely free of charge, and I know that sounds too good to be true, but really think about it as from our perspective. We're a nonprofit organization trying to lift up community college transfer students. So if you're willing to come onto our portal and provide some information about your school, we would love that. So we will provide that opportunity for free for you to give transfer specific data for transfer bound students. And also you can list your scholarship details. If you have 5 different scholarships that transfer students are eligible for on your campus, you can list all 5 of them and have students looking at that information and favoriting that information to help with their research. So there are several things we do there for free. There are also some things, as we discussed earlier, with the list, the name purchase through PTK Connect, that is a subscription-based model. Some other things, that I guess arguably that's free would be designating a scholarship. Of course, it's your own money, but we're not going to enter into any sort of contract with you or charge you anything to call your scholarship a PTK scholarship. So if you have scholarships, I'd love to talk to you about maybe redesigning that or just moving aside, earmarking some money differently so that it's exclusively for PTK members, because that will really help give you a direct plug into this community of students. And then we want you to show up at things like our annual convention. There's also local and regional versions of these conventions. So if you can't make it to the big national, international convention, you can come to one of the local or regional events as well and recruit students there. But if you want to look at that, it's ptk.org/catalyst, and you can sign up to be part of the biggest transfer fair for high achieving students that there is in higher ed. And we would love to have you join us in April for that event. Transfer Honor Roll is last but not least. It's a recognition program for the four-year colleges that are going into PTK Connect, giving us transfer-specific data. And basically, we're creating an algorithm to score all of the data to show who is the most transfer-friendly and provide some recognition, such as a seal that you see here you can use in your emails and your marketing materials, etc. And we celebrate you also at PTK Catalyst, which will be in April in Orlando.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Yes.
So just in conclusion, here's kind of the quick rundown of key tools. I listed PTK Connect as a type for other PTK services, but essentially finding the right fit transfers, using some digital tools, making sure that the clearinghouse is involved, removing roadblocks, using tools potentially like Transferology, and then getting digital ads out there through social and other means. With that, because we're starting to go up against the clock here, I wanted to turn it back over and see if Amanda had any questions come in, and we'll take a couple minutes to field those questions.
Sure. Thank you, both of you, Jamie and Heather, for today's presentation. We do have a couple of questions. First of all, we have the question of, if we have access to College Fish, do we have access to PTK Connect?
Yes, thank you for that question. The answer is yes, most definitely. We did roll over all of the existing subscriptions, so whatever end date was on your College Fish subscription will be your same end date for PTK Connect. If you're having a problem logging in, it's probably just something we need to switch around in the back office. So just contact us at I'll give you our email address is on the screen, heather.yush@ptk.org. Very timely and great question. Thanks for asking.
Perfect. We have another question on GeoIP targeting, ads, and social prospecting. What is the best time of year to launch those campaigns?
That is a great question. One of the things that Capture likes to do is do a lot of experiments and understand that. We do a lot of data analysis. I don't think we have an answer to that says exactly, and I think partly the variability, especially when it comes to transfers and populations like that, is that there's never really a season where they're not transferring. I know that for the partners that I'm working with right now, we have recently either stood up or reignited some of the campaigns that we had going maybe in the latter part of 2018. And I do feel like there are probably some natural cadence to this, but essentially, in my opinion, the campaigns are, there probably is a case to have them running, usually from, say, February to May, especially for GeoIP targeting. That's one is a little bit more specific to location, and you definitely want to have that, operational on a time when students are going to be on campus, which isn't, I don't want to say exclusively that March to May is like the key time, but relative to a lot of community colleges, they do slow down after graduation in May, and students are, especially if they've reached their graduation point or they've reached the end of the semester, that's going to be the more likely time that they're going to be thinking of transferring. But I don't think that I would want to say that is entirely exclusive. I think that there could be some arguments, some really strong arguments made for having those campaigns run at other times, but I would definitely stay away from the summer when it comes to GeoIP.
All right, thank you. That makes complete sense. Another question, how many students are using PTK Connect?
That is a great question. We are just now looking at some metrics for how things are going, and it looks like we have about 20,000 students that logged in January, which was essentially our first full month after revamping and rebranding, that we're actively on there searching around and looking for things. So we're actually just now starting the process of investigating who is on there, what are they clicking, how many students are looking at scholarships versus colleges. I can tell you that the scholarship search is outperforming the college search by just a little bit, but it's pretty neck and neck. And then the third thing they're looking at are career pathways on there. So we haven't put any substantial marketing out there to students just quite yet. We really are waiting for PTK Catalyst when we get 4,000 of those students in front of us, and that convention is unlike anything else. And we're knowing that they're going to go back to their campus and spread the word about PTK Connect and share the PowerPoints that we're delivering at that conference and everything like that. So, but generally, as I alluded to earlier, about 200,000 students will be searchable and visible, and that is because we're importing them from our Honor Society database when they join or accept their membership. So as long as they tell us they're interested in transfer, we then will make them searchable and visible to you. And at any given point at the end of the calendar year, there will be about 200,000 students that are accessible through that portal.
Well, it's possible that we lost maybe Amanda on the sound.
Oh, nope, that's me hitting mute. Sorry. Technology fail. The question was, does PTK have a integration with Slate?
No, we do not actually have an integration. What we do is we have a data dictionary that we turn over to you that will probably be all your CRM person needs to know in order to successfully integrate with Slate. We've been told from Slate users on campuses that it's been very simple to set up with the help of that data dictionary, and we can provide a sample file layout as well. So if anyone on here wants to receive that, just email me and I'll send you both documents.
Sure, and Capture does have a Slate integration that we can do for partnerships. So in case you were wondering that same question for what Jamie was showing you as well. Last question that we have time for today, and any other questions we'll be happy to answer one-on-one to the group, is can you discuss how best practices in working with community colleges that have frustrations with four-year colleges as it relates to program alignment, transferring, and credits and partnerships? So just kind of talking about the alignment between the community college and the four-year curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
I can definitely speak to that because that was the world I was living in before coming to work for Phi Theta Kappa. Working with community colleges, it really is a difficult thing to navigate sometimes because you have, primary market of students that are coming to you as well as probably some sort of secondary and tertiary market. So, really prioritizing those natural feeder schools is going to be very important. And again, that comes from knowing who they are. So just having your IR person turn over a list of, here's the top 50 schools that are sending us transfer students in terms of application and then in terms of enrolled students. So I think getting around the table with somebody at the community college that is invested in transfer with, probably the transfer support, like transfer services or the PTK advisor, the honors college advisor, some of these people, as well as departmental chairs, are going to be very instrumental in having a conversation. But just acknowledging that that they're sending you a significant number of students, I think really opens the dialogue for you to have some meaningful conversations about next steps to create program alignment. And if there's things on your four-year college campus that just do not work for transfer students, just be upfront with the students and with the community college campus about that. There are some things that just can't be helped, such as art programs or architecture programs where the student will maybe have to essentially start over. So I think a lot of times it's just a matter of communicating that is the way things work, and this is how we're going to make sure students don't, apply with the thought that they're going to be an architect and graduate in 4 years. Jamie, you might have other thoughts on that, but that's kind of the lessons that I learned having to serve and support this population for a few years.
Yeah, I don't really have much else to add. I know that we're at the end of the hour, but maybe we can take that question and reach out to the individual who asked it and maybe talk a little bit more through that afterward, Amanda.
Sure, that sounds good. Well, I just want to thank Heather and Jamie for both hosting the webinar today on transfer enrollment.